Ladies and gentlemen, today is November 3rd, 2012, and this is the KNKL Show, episode 57, right? Right, we are on 57, right? Yes, episode 57. I am your humble host, Kienan Lafferty, and today we are going to be doing a tutorial, once again, on exploring a little bit more of the human anatomy, specifically in the shoulder, like connecting the arms to the chest and the abdominals and all that stuff. And it is going to be deemed another joint study session because I am not the best at anatomy, but I do have some helpful hints that I have learned along the way that I want to pass down to you guys. And yes, hopefully inspire you and give you a little bit more insight into the human body. But before we get into that, we are going to be going through the usual. First of all, I want to thank you guys so much for making it past. As you can see, we are past 3,000 subscribers, and that is awesome. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to enjoy the show and telling your friends about it. I hope that I can help you guys out with my silly antics and my silly little sketches. Moving on to the Facebook, aka Lovely Lane. Thank you guys so much for submitting your beautiful pieces here. I am glad that I am able to help in any way possible. I'm really happy to see you guys taking advantage of the tutorials and putting them to good use in your own pieces and masterpieces. And I meant to say pieces and works of art. Whatever. Moving on. If you have not followed me on Twitter yet, please follow, because I will post links not when I am riding my bike outside and struggling to make it up the hills while my friend Jake pedals right in front of me like it's nothing. But I will post links when I am uploading new videos to YouTube. So please, please follow. Please follow. Now with all that out of the way, we are going to be moving into the tutorial. So, one of the biggest things that I want to talk about today is actually going to be dealing with connecting the shoulders to the chest region. So, and I will show you on both a male figure and a female figure. So let's get started, shall we? Let's get started. So one of the most interesting things that I found out, while I was doing some quick little studying was originally, like when I draw the shoulders, right, I kind of like make them, like I just kind of do this, and a good friend of mine, a good teacher, mentor of mine by the name of Alvin Lee, he does this thing where he separates the shoulders into 3 egg shapes, right? And then from there you build off the arm, right? And here is, like, say the bicep, and then the tricep there, and then you go into your oh so lovely forearm, right? Like that. Somewhat like that, yeah. But then the question always comes up, it's like, how do you connect it to the chest region? And I'm here to shed some light on that because I found out a genius way to always remember how to do that. So let's, actually I'm going to go ahead and darken this a little bit more because we are dealing with important things today. It's even saturated a little bit. Okay. We are dealing with very important things today. So a very cool thing that I found out is, okay, so let's say we got our, let's draw on the rest of the figure really quickly. Say we got the torso going on here, right? We'll just kind of make it a general shape really quickly. And here's the halfway point, and here's our neck and our trapezius and here's our dude's head right here. Okay, that's good. Now, moving on. Something really cool I found out is that when you're drawing the chest muscles, right? When you're drawing the chest muscles, usually they kind of go like this, right? For the guy. But then something that's really cool to remember is that the chest muscles connect in between this shoulder part and your bicep. So they actually emerge from that point. And there's a connective tissue here, and this connects to your collarbone, which is right there. And I'll go back and I'll highlight this really quickly. Something I've always found really cool is that, you know, the shoulder kind of goes like this, right? And then these lines continue to go down like that. I always thought that was really, really cool. Almost looks just like fans out like a cool shell shape. And that's always like an easy way to remember how the muscles form. So always remember that. Then you got this little divot right here. This is pretty cool. If you can accentuate that, I think that always looks really awesome. So yeah, here, going back to that, let me accentuate what I just did there. So something that is always good to remember is this happening here, right? And then think of this fan that's coming out like this, right? And then it all connects right back into here, right, in this region. And then behind that, basically the pectoral, whatever, connects to, you know, underneath the shoulder, because you don't want to think about layers. That's one thing I've always wanted to make sure that people don't, and especially me, you don't mess up, is the layers of the muscles, because you can create shapes, but it's always good to remember which muscle is in front of what. So underneath that is where your bicep is going to come from, right? And then I always like to think about this, right? With the 3 egg shapes, you know, the 1, 2, 3 thing happening here. I always like to think right where this point happens is where the bicep comes out, and then it actually separates into like a minor muscle. There's like I think either this is part of the bicep, both of these, or like there's like some sort of separation there. I don't know. I've seen some people do it. I try not to accentuate it that much, but I usually just put it there because I like it. Then similarly, as we learned before when we were drawing forearms, another really cool thing to do is, you remember the tricep is back here, right? And it's always cool to remember that the carpi, which is the major muscle that we start a forearm with, emerges from between the bicep and the tricep, and it goes down here, right? And it's followed by all those lovely little flexors. Yeah, so that's looking pretty cool. So anyway, moving on. We are going to be focusing on the connection of the shoulder and how it moves into the chest and down to the abdominal region, and then I will also do the example on a lovely lady figure as well. So, all right, so moving on. So we know we've got this here, right? We've got the chest muscle right here. And then there's the little separation. There's the cartilage. You know, people that, you've seen bodybuilders, like when they flex, there's like that little separation between, like if I were to take off my shirt and show you this, it would be there because I have massive pecs. Just kidding. It would be blinding to you because there would be nothing there. I am what you call no pec. So, but anyway, that's another conversation for another time. So moving on, there is the sternum, actually, the cartilage connecting the pectorals to the sternum. That is what we are demonstrating here. And then, yes, there's also connective tissue that connects to the collarbone. So, and it appears we have our trapezius up here. Yes, the trapezius connects back here. Yes. All right, so moving on. Let's go back to our sketchy phase. Back into our sketches. Okay, so one thing I want to talk about is an easy way to remember. And again, I don't remember all of the actual names of the muscles here, but through a combination of me checking out this muscle chart here on the other screen and a couple of shapes that I've learned to remember, I will hopefully instill some knowledge in you that will help you on your journey. So let's start here. We're going to start actually with one of the shapes that I always like. It's kind of my go-to shape when I start the abdominals, right? And this is like, honestly, like a comic book shape. I think this represents the rib cage that comes right from underneath your pecs, and it will help you to start off your abdominals and have them look cool, right? So for the guy, it's going to be like this, right? And then you're going to separate, these abdominals. And something I always like to do is, a lot of abs don't necessarily do this, but I find it cool and kind of comic booky to kind of have them go up like in a chevron formation, like that. Kind of like that was a six-pack. It almost looks like a turtle shell. It looks like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shell. But I do like to do that. And, just kind of suggest it, So there you go. Moving on. We are going to go into the next set of muscles, which is the latissimus, or not the latissimus. That is going to be in just a second. So you follow this down, right? There's another muscle group that comes down like this. And this is actually part of your obliques, and then your obliques will connect to your serratus anterior in the back. 1 second while I pull up that reference. Okay, now we're back. So what we're going to be looking at here is the transition. The transition of the abs to the serratus anterior. So let's take a close look at that. Let's take a closer look. Let's go in for a closer look. So yeah, it's actually very, very simple. I like to think of this, and then this goes down towards the crotchal region. So we'll just go like that for now. And then, let's see. Now this is kind of where it starts to get into some shapes that have helped me, because it represents like connective tissue. Represents connective tissue, but I don't know really the names of the muscles that exist there. So, okay, so check it out here. So here's a few shapes that you'll want to remember as you go forward in your journeys. So there is this shape right in here, right? And let's say the belly button is like happening right around there. So this, what this represents is just kind of the end of your obliques, right? That kind of connect down to your leg muscles. And then this, what is happening right here, this is also your obliques. Like both of these, they could connect into one. They could connect into one, right? But having this line here, it's almost nice because it helps you remember like the planes. Remember when we were talking about the planes of the face? Like, here, let me draw like a quick arrow over this. You remember that it curves up, and then it has this little change in, level, right? So it kind of curves like that, curves, and then curves around again. And goes like that, right? It just kind of helps you to remember where that little change in plane is happening. And I just drew over that. Glorious! Alright, so moving on. We are going to transition into the serratus anterior. Now the serratus anterior is like a little tiny group that happens before the latissimus dorsi comes and takes it over. Actually, let's move the oblique up just a tiny bit more. And the latissimus is your back muscle, right? But what's happening is it actually exists. You can actually see it quite easily from the 3/4 view that we're looking at right here, right? So your obliques connect right here, right? And then an easy way to remember this is like take these abs and go 1, 2, 3, right? Up like that, right? And the way that the serratus anterior works, and I'm sure you've seen this before, is after you go 1, 2, 3, the serratus anterior almost like interweaves with it like this. It goes 1, 2, and 3, right? Oh, that makes sense. Okay, look, it'll make more sense now. And again, we are kind of pushing around a few muscles just to see what looks right and what will help us remember. So we got 1, 2, 3, and you got these serratus anterior muscles emerging and interweaving with your obliques, right? And again, you don't want to like show these lines when you go into it, but it's good to remember. Mostly you're going to be seeing these lines here. I'll show you. Let's just go over this very quickly. So let's go over what we have learned. We've got the abdominals here. This is the comic book muscle. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'm pretty sure it represents like the rib cage, just as it connects back up into the chest, right? And always keep in mind where these plane changes are happening. In fact, I'll do another drawing over top of it that represents the plane changes. There we go. And again, you can play around with different ab type little stylistic choices. I like to do the little upward chevron thing, but you can do whatever you want. Maybe you can do a downward chevron. You can do whatever you want. Now going into the serratus anterior, remember all you got to do is take these lines and kind of continue them up. Remember from this, there was a shape that we made right here, right? All you got to do is continue those lines up. 1, 2, 3, right? And then you can create the serratus anterior, this is the biggest part that you're going to be seeing. And like when you do go back and define the muscles, you'll be seeing the interweaving of these things happening right here. And then those are engulfed by the latissimus dorsi, aka the back muscle, the big back muscle, the big bad back muscle. And then from there, what emerges is this thing, which is again part of the obliques, and we decide to cut this into like a separate shape here because it helps us remember the plane change that is happening between that oblique and this oblique. Yes. And then over here you'll notice, like, look at the depth that's happening here. See these muscles that are occurring here? Those are also happening here, right? So you're going back, you got maybe a little bit of serratus anterior going on there. And that makes your figure look very full and rounded out and muscular and awesome. So always remember to do that. So now we will move into just the basics of the connections to the leg and the hip and all that stuff. And then we'll move on to the girl figure, and we'll do the same thing. Kind of show you a few things that help me out, and yeah. So moving on, we have the awesome manly torso. So let's move into the awesome manly legs, or the connections to the legs. So we're going to be moving into a little bit more shape type stuff, right? So let me take away this here. Go back into sketchy phase. And again, this part I really this is the part where it's really going to turn into a study session because I don't know everything about this stuff, but I will do my best. I will do my best. Okay, so biggest thing you want to think about is where the gluteus, aka gluteus maximus, is going to be emerging from, right? And then you've got these muscles from the leg that connect way up here, way up to the oblique, right? And those are going to stretch downward like this, right? Downward like that, right? Yeah, that's good. There's actually a gigantic like muscle here. I forget what it's called, but for those of you who ever played Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver, Raziel, when he gets all messed up and decrepified, he has like this weird like strap. It looks like a strap, but it's actually a muscle. It is an anatomically correct muscle, and that is awesome. Okay. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to switch to another anatomy chart. Where's my better one? And again, let's see here. There we go. That's a good one. And again, I would share these with you guys, but I don't know if I'll get in trouble for copyright issues and stuff. So all I'm doing is I am checking out a few different anatomy charts, and I am translating it to you in my own personal crazy way. And actually, I think these are much better because, you know, what's really funny is I look for these anatomy charts online, and they're nearly impossible to find in like nice high-res versions, you know? Okay, so I think the best thing to do here is we are going to lop off these legs at this area here. Just lop them off. And this will be something we will continue in another daily. So pay attention to this right here. Notice that muscle there, then the booty coming up there, and then that muscle is going to also come down here like that. That muscle emerges like that. We'll cut off that muscle too. I don't know if that bump is supposed to exist there. Probably not. There we go. There we go. Okay, so let's do a quick little thing on that. Going back to our sketchies. Or I mean our overlays. Okay, so a big thing to remember is right at the edge of your oblique, you'll notice that it doesn't go all the way to the edge there. Oh, you notice that it doesn't wrap all the way around. I don't know why exactly it does that, but it allows space for the booty to come out here, right? And then it connects there. Then you have a muscle that comes from way up here, way up in this area, comes down, it wraps around, right? Like that. And then you got all this like connective little, there's like a bunch of like little connecty bits happening here. But that's not really important. You don't need to worry about that. All you got to remember is this big kind of strap muscle that comes across here. And then underneath the beginnings of the legs. Yeah. Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. Very good. So, I hope that helps answer some of your guys' questions on the guys' figure. Now, let's move on to the girls' figure. So we're going to be doing the same thing, a similar thing. And yeah, we'll just see how it corresponds from the man to the woman. The man to the lovely lady. Alrighty then. Let us get started, shall we? So the first thing we're going to do is talk about the arms again. Remember, we're going to connect the shoulder. We're going to connect the shoulder, and I'm going to turn off this red thing so it doesn't steal your attention. And I'm going to, actually, wait, I'll do this. Keep that on. Lower the opacity. Yes, because I want you looking here, not here, here. So let's start. Now we know the female figure is much more dainty and lovely and beautiful, so we are going to make it a little bit smaller. Same structure, but we're just going to make the shoulders a little bit smaller, right? And then from there we know that we come down to the bicep and the tricep back here, right? At the tip of that second egg, number 2, right here, that is where our bicep emerges, right? And then from within, the carpi emerges, right? Comes out like that. Connecty dude there, I don't know what he does, but it looks nice. Comic book artists draw it there, and that is why I draw it. So there we go. Got that thing going out like that. Awesome. So now let's move into the torso. Let's draw just the general shape of it first. Looks good to me. Let's go ahead and separate it down the center there. And let us begin. Let us begin the the procedure. So, as we know, the pectoral, it's not as important about the girls because obviously you got the boobies maximus coming off there, and you're not going to see the pectorals. But it's also good to know that you will see the edge of it. You know, like there's like a little line that happens there. You know. So let's go ahead and draw in the pectorals emerging from there, like that. All right. I always think about flow, making things look beautiful, making them look flowy and lovely. All right. I'll draw the other arm over here, like that. So we've got connecting to the shoulder here. Let's go ahead and draw in our little fan blades there. Lovely. Cool. Moving on to that comic book muscle. I don't know what it is. It's the ribcagey thing. Yeah. All right. Now we move into the obliques, or not the obliques, the abdominals. Abdominals. We'll just kind of draw those in really quickly. Down to the belly button, which should be right around there. Good on you. We'll draw in the chevrons, although usually I tend to not exaggerate as much the abdominals of the women, and that's kind of a common thing. I don't know why. It's more feminine to exaggerate these lines that are happening here. So let's go ahead and draw in the obliques, right? Draw them obliques. So we come down like this, making it much skinnier, going down into the crotchal region. That's a good start. And again, I'm just eyeballing it, right? It's like I don't know exactly how far down it goes, but you know, as we add the other muscles, we will be able to adjust and fix things as we see fit. So let's go ahead and remember how we follow up here. We're going to be going into the Serratus Anterior. Going up here. And then we interweave these little thingies here, like that. And then around comes the Latissimus dorsi. Kind of erase this a little bit in there. And now we move into those helpful shape muscles. Not sure what they are, but they help out so much. Oh, so much. Again, this is part of the obliques. And this helped us to remember the plane changes that will be happening. And I will demonstrate that once again on the girl because it is slightly different than it is on the guy. Oh, so slightly different. Going back up. Going back up. All right, cool. It's looking good. All right, so, man, this is actually really helping out quite a bit. I really like this. I'm learning so much by teaching. And that is the magic, ladies and gentlemen, of doing a tutorial show. You learn just as much as you teach. Oh. Moving on. We'll have the neck, comes up here. Man, you know what? You know what would be really cool? To do a tutorial on neck muscles. Like, nobody does those. Nobody does neck muscles. Mostly because you don't really ever have to draw them, but it is good to know, I guess, what's going on over there. Okay, so this is also the extension. This represents the extension of the obliques going down there, right? And then just as we had this little helper shape over here, it's a little bit different on the girl. It goes up like this. And remember how it goes up a little ways to make room for the gluteus maximus? That is exactly what happens here too. Then draw this down here. And then, let's see. We've got this oblique muscle, but there's also like that big big muscle that comes down from right over here. Remember that one that extends from your hip down your leg like that. So let's make sure to draw that. I don't know exactly how it connects up here, but looks like it connects right to the hip muscle. The hip muscle. Well, actually, you know what? I know what this is. I know what this is. This goes up all the way over here. This connects way up over here. Then it goes down. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But again, I like to kind of simplify it and not worry too much about it until after this, because this is a very important line, and I'll demonstrate that right here, why that is an important line. Because when a girl bends her leg, right? Go back into that little helper shape, right? When she bends her leg, the leg actually starts bending right here, right? You almost want to think of it as like a puzzle piece. It's moving, right? It goes out like that, right? And then from here, go down like that. Muscles happening. Muscles are happening. And then you got the muscle that comes down from here, goes across, starts going into the other leg muscles. The other leg muscles. Woo! Man, this is tough stuff. I do love learning about muscles, though. Muscles are a beautiful thing. And once you know them, like once you know these little shapes and can quickly kind of just remember them, again, this is something I'm working on too, but once you know them and remember them, it helps you so much when you are drawing figures and like just these little tiny just changes, like knowing where the leg, you know, kind of bends and goes up into the hip muscle and why it does that, you know. It really shows in your work, and it will really make it a lot more awesome and believable. Yeah, looks pretty good. So you got some big old muscular thighs. Well, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. You can always just kind of trim it down a little bit. Take it down a notch. Take it down a notch. Okay, so let me go over really quickly what is important to remember from the transition from the male to the female, right? Remember that, yeah, a lot of things are being either shrunk down or elongated or changed in some way, you know, specifically in this hip region. And we will go over this one more time for review. And then we will finish up, ladies and gentlemen. So, let's go over what we have learned here. What have we learned? We have learned that we first begin drawing the shoulder muscles here, right? In the 3-egg formation. At the tip of the second egg, that is where our bicep begins, right? And it goes down into our bicep and tricep. Between the bicep and tricep emerges the carpi, which begins the forearm and goes down like that. And for those of you who want to know how to draw the forearm properly, simply go to the tutorial. I think it was just a few tutorials ago. We went in depth on how to do forearms and all the muscles that comprise it. Then remember, as your bicep comes up, it's actually overlapped by the pectoral muscle that comes down here, right? And you got the little connecting bits going on there, connecting to the sternum. And then begins the abdominal muscles. And always remember the cool fanning that's happening here. Again, you don't have to draw those in, but it's always just really cool to remember how those work. Coming on down, coming on down. Oh, and last thing, I'll show you how to place the Bubius Maximus on this figure when we're done. But first, we will continue going down here. So we got this muscle here, which represents our rib cage, right? Going down like that, right into the abdominals. For girls, I'd say it's probably just most important just to remember this part right here. Just this, or rather this shape, as opposed to, you know, you don't need to worry so much about the abdominals. And it goes right on down and connects to the crotchal region. Down like that. Yeah, like that. Looks good. And remember the belly button. The way I've seen it sometimes, the way I've seen it a lot is that the big abdominal muscles end right at the belly button. Then you got this big, last giant thing that goes all the way down your waist. Now, for remembering, say you want to draw the Serratus Anterior on your girl, just remember you go 3 lines up from each of these abs, right? Going up. And then in between those, the Serratus Anterior will emerge and then be covered by the Latissimus dorsi, which is in the back. Moving on to the obliques. Now, the obliques are a big muscle that probably exists in this region, kind of. But for the sake of this exercise and just a good thing to remember, I really like to create this shape. And the reason why I create this shape is because of the pelvis, right? The pelvis underneath is actually creating a pressure point right here on the, or it's like popping out right there, right? Or maybe it's not exactly there. Is it? I don't know. I think it is, yeah. It just looks a little bit high to be up by the belly button, but maybe it is. And so it's around there, right? It's around there. And the reason why we do this is because, well, it's happening here, so. It's happening here, so going across it would be about, yeah, probably around there. So maybe not that high, but right there. That you want to think about the pelvis that is actually much more pronunciated on girls than it is on guys. So that's an important shape to remember as it goes down. And then also, a good thing to remember is because of the shape that we've created, let's go back into the planes of the body. Planes of the body, right? So we come around this, right? And then right here, there's like a pressure point, right? And it comes back around, all the way around like this, right? Another pressure point. Goes boom, like that. And then it rounds out. So you want to think about that like when you're shading things, right? If you show those pressure points, if you show those changes in the plane that are happening there, same thing here. It goes in, out like that, and then goes up and around like that. That's why I like to create this shape there, because it just helps me remember, what is supposed to be happening there. What is supposed to be happening there when I go into shade things, right? And again, this is happening in my mind. I don't always draw this out, but it helps to communicate, just that extra bit of form in the abdominals and the hip area, and it looks great. It really does. So, yes, never forget that. Now, moving on, we learned that the big kind of strap muscle, wherever this thing is, goes way up and connects to the pelvis, and then comes on down, right, like that. And then from there, this emerges, and we begin the legs, but we will go into that another day. For now, we're just lopping them off. Going back into the booty. And this little shape here allows us to connect it. Again, a very subtle thing that you can do and remember to do, actually, is that from here, it goes up, but then there's just like this little tiny little rounding there that happens, a little indent that happens there from the butt. So don't forget that, because it looks good. Then another easy way to remember, one of the muscles that comes from here is usually just connects right at that center point. The crotch goes right down. This is, again, I think this is the gluteus right there. I think that is. And you go back up into that strap muscle, goes up, and then it kind of wraps around from that hip. Easy way to remember that. Up and over. And, and also the other importance of this shape is it shows where the leg is going to bend on the girl. Always remember that. It always shows this plane change that's happening right here. This is a big one. Very, very big one. Always remember this. Always communicate this properly. Because it will make your drawing sexy and awesome. And we like that. We like sexy and awesome. So, With all that out of the way, we will move into the grand finale, how to place the Boobius Maximus. All right. So it's actually very, very simple. All you got to do, well, I shouldn't jinx myself by saying that. All you got to do is just think of it as a connection type thing that's happening right in here. They're basically just, they're placed right on top of the pectorals, right? And they'll droop a little bit, obviously, because of gravity. Imagine that. Kind of come down a little bit. And remember, they are not beach balls. They do not simply stay, they do not defy gravity unless you are Jessica Rabbit. So the important thing to remember is A, that there's a little bit of gravity happening right in here, right? And they connect right up in here. Then I'll draw some points on there to help you guys out. And then remember, like, think of what's happening here, because it's resting against this muscle, right? It's resting against this and dropping down. So it's going to have this shape almost, you know? It's going to go up and down like that, right? Looks good. And a good way to remember, like, a general idea is I like to curve the bottom and then kind of just barely around the top. Like, not straight, not a straight line, but just barely curve the top. That's just a general rule of thumb for the Boobius Maximus. Go ahead and erase that under there so you can see what I'm doing, what that looks like. And I'll go ahead and just erase this so you can see kind of what's happening here. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I'll probably just kick it up just a little bit like that. And then think of the center point. This is, again, center point's happening here, right? Going down, and then it comes back up like that. Center point is happening right around there. Boom, boom. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My slightly more in-depth tutorial on the human anatomy and how it relates with guys and girls. So I hope that that sheds some light on some things for you, and we can go more into some awesome things such as this in the future. If you guys would like to have more of a tutorial on the legs, I really need some help with that. So if you guys want to do a joint study session with that, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to do that for you. So with that, I am going to go ahead and wrap up episode 57 of the KNKL show. Thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. I'm Kienan Lafferty, and I will see you guys next week.